Hello, hello, hello to all my Facebook and YouTube followers and subscribers. I want to thank you guys for joining us today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon for another edition of The Lion's Den, where we are restoring kings and queens one conversation at a time. Today we have a conversation, a subject matter that is guaranteed to get somewhat lit. And I like to use that word lit for today's show. We have a few guests today. And let me introduce those. We have Alphonso McGriff, and Alphonso McGriff III is a very good friend of mine, one of my oldest friends. He is an accomplished author with several books out. He has a YouTube channel, which I'll let him mention that as we're broadcasting today. He's a public intellectual, and most of all, he's just one of the most intelligent people that I know, and one of my closest and dearest friends. We also have Dr. Greg Henderson, who's been a guest on the previous shows that we've done in the Lion's Den. Very well studied gentleman. He's very modest, so I won't give you all of his many credentials. But let's just say he's well equipped and well prepared for such a conversation. And last but certainly not least, we have my good friend Lisa Smith out of the ATL. And Lisa and I worked together in one of my salons previously. That's where we met. And the one thing that you will immediately know about Lisa, spending some time around her, that she is indeed one of the strongest Black women walking around the planet today. She does not have a problem with voicing her opinion. So without further ado, we're going to bring in all three of these guests. And here we are. Welcome to the show, all of my friends.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody good? Check Mike. All right, everybody's in there. So, as we have mentioned already, the topic of the day is dealing with how Black men seem to feel towards Black women. It's been said, and I've been seeing it said more and more frequently, that Black men either no longer like Black women, or worse than that, Black men hate Black women. And I have a hard time even letting that come out of my mouth, because as a Black man, I love my Black woman that I'm married to, but I love and respect Black women in general. Even the ones that are rough around the edges, the ones that do stuff that I don't agree with, the ones that might talk bad about me, in spite of all of those things, I still have a genuine love for Black women. So we're going to discuss, is this just a trend? Is this just something that's just passing by? Or is it really a real situation that we're facing? And before I let you guys chime in on this, I want to also mention that one of the things that started bringing it to my attention is that with Kamala Harris running for the VP with Joe Biden, a lot of people are not necessarily big fans of hers in the Black community. And when Black men seem to voice their opinion or put information out about things that she said in the past or what have you, people don't want to hear that, and they immediately say, you hate to see Black women rise to power in a successful Black woman. And I totally disagree with that, but let me hear, what you guys have to say. We can start with you, Lisa.
Okay, on the Kamala Harris situation, I could agree with you that she has done her criminal reform record is pretty messed up concerning Black men, but I think it was for criminals, period, for that matter. But I didn't see the same response when Hillary Clinton was running. She and Bill Clinton were a part of the mass incarceration, and no one really responded in this way, in the way that they're responding to Kamala Harris. And I feel as though it's because she's a Black woman. We didn't have the equal response. They still supported her. Black men still supported Hillary Clinton. They doted on her. They loved her because they were familiar with the Black Bill Clinton. And they familiarized themselves with Bill Clinton and associated him with being Black. So, automatically they dismissed the fact that he was a part of the mass incarceration of Black men. But when
Right.
Kamala Harris comes about, it's like we shut her down immediately. And I think that that is due to the fact that she is a black woman who is rising to the top of whatever she's, the VP or whatever. I think it's because of that alone. I don't think it's
Yeah.
because of the criminal reform because Joe Biden doesn't have a good record on that either. So, but no one's as upset with him. They're holding her more to a point than they hold him, and I think that's disturbing in itself.
Okay. So first, I want to tell you that I don't know if everybody else is seeing the way I'm seeing you, but you're kind of freezing. We can hear your voice continuously, but your image is actually freezing up. Your voice is the most important thing, although you're
It
beautiful. People
is.
want to see you too. Yeah. But
I don't know, but I don't know.
okay, well, like I said, we can hear your voice just fine, so we'll roll with it. It's not a problem. I just wanted to make you aware of it because you're like right now you're still frozen.
Okay.
You just moved a little bit.
Okay.
Now for me, number one, no, I'm not. I'm not. Well, I'm not a political person anyway. I always have to say that, but I'm not a Clinton supporter in any respect because I do know a lot of the history, and I do know that generally speaking, the black community embraces the Clintons for the reasons that you mentioned and others. Um, but and then you said something about Kamala as you said she's a black woman. Well, I'm going to call her a woman of color because there's a lot to be said about if she's quote unquote a black woman, and that's a whole nother conversation we could definitely touch on. If you guys want to get into that too. But Alfonso, give me your take on this situation.
Where was Obama? Was Obama a black man?
Well, there's some talk about that too. So they're kind of in the same category when it comes to their I guess their connection to descendants of slaves. You see what I'm saying? But I'm gonna let Alfonso handle that because I think he's a little bit more well equipped to touch on that and respond to that. So let's get Alfonso to chime in on that.
Okay. Why am I
Well, I
seeing it?
personally, I don't. I'm not a political person either. The reason why I'm not a person that's heavy into politics is because, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. When the Democrats are in charge, for 4 years, the Republicans complain about them and try to prevent them from doing everything they want to do for 4 years. And then if the Republicans are in charge, the Democrats do the exact same thing. For 4 years or whatever, they try to do everything they can to prevent the other group or other party from doing what they want to do. And with this kind of behavior, that indicates to me that it's not about the people. Because I would think that if the Republicans held the office, the Democrats lost the election, it's time for the Democrats and everybody to join in to help the Republicans do what's best for the people. If the Democrats won the office, then it's time for the Republicans and everybody to join in and help the Democrats do what's best for the people. In my lifetime, I've just seen, especially during Obama's years, just 8 years of nothing but complaints about what the Democrats are doing from the Republicans, and just those two groups fighting each other the whole time. So I have zero respect for that political process. I have no respect for it because as long as it's conducted in that fashion, it's not in the best interest of the people. Now, as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, I don't feel one way or the other about Kamala Harris because the office of the President of the United States and the office of the Vice Presidents of the United States means absolutely nothing to me, because I would never want any of children that I know, black children, to be inspired by Kamala Harris as vice president or Obama as president. Reason being is because that vice president office, nor does that president's office empower black people. So for us to operate based on white people's definition of power and think the office of the president is a powerful office and position. I'm not with that, because our understanding of power has to empower us. But we don't define power in our own terms and in our own words. We keep going by definitions that white people have established, whether it's power, success, manhood, womanhood. African people in America have yet to define all of these things in a way that work in our best interest and empower us. So it means nothing to me who's the president, who's the vice president, whether they black, white, or green, or Puerto Rican. None of that matters to me, because that doesn't empower me. That office doesn't empower me. And not only that, but as far as I'm concerned, they work in their own best interest and not for the people.
Okay. Well, I know that's where you stand. And I know you about to light my page up now that everybody else knows where you stand.
Oh, and let me say, I didn't vote for Obama either. I didn't vote for Obama. I didn't vote for anybody. And I'm not voting in this election, because that place does not empower me, and it doesn't empower black people.
So I totally understand the angle that you're coming from. And on the last show, when I was speaking with Tiffany Fox, I mentioned to her how, despite me not being a political fan and being involved in politics on the national level and everything, I was watching CNN when Kamala was introduced for the first time as the partner for Joe Biden in this election. And as she walked to the podium, it did give me a good feeling to see this woman in that position and walking up to the podium. And I don't have a daughter, but I thought to myself that if I did, despite my feelings about it overall, it still would make me feel good to be able to allow my daughter to see a person of color in that position to accomplish such a goal. Now, the effectiveness of the White House and those who get in the White House and all that kind of stuff, that's a whole nother conversation, but I totally agree with you where that kind of stuff is concerned. It's interesting because I know you're a little older than me, and typically people of our generation and older generations are those that are really fans of the political system, and they believe you got to vote. You got to change things. Your power to vote. People died for you to have the right to vote and all that kind of stuff. And what I always like to say about that, where that's concerned, is that people died for us to have the right to vote, but not to have the obligation to vote. And if your options are the devil, Lucifer, and Satan, why should you feel obligated to vote for one of those three if you recognize them to be for none of them to be of any good for black people and many other people around the globe? I don't know. We seem to have lost Lisa. Hopefully she's going to come back in. Her connection must be bad. I'm trying to get in touch with her. She's texting me now. But Dr. Greg, let me get you to chime in on that.
Well, all three of you have made some interesting points, and I'm going to speak from opinion because we're all entitled to our opinions. However, we're not entitled to our facts. And sometimes we have a tendency to cross-reference opinions to facts. I agree, Scott, that, if we're going to look at the shallowness of her being black because she is from a Jamaican father and Indian mother, it does definitely question, is she African American? Now, but if we look at things from a...
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay, you can't see your face. You're a little cut off. Okay, that's good. That's good. We see you. There you go. All right. Sorry for that, Dr. Gray. Continue.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. If we look at the context of everything, how are we basing our decisions? Based off opinions to where we are feeling some certain kind of way, or are we basing it off of a holistic view? So, Scott, if your question, so please clarify your question that you want me to respond to.
Well, I was just looking for you to kind of respond to what Lisa said, myself, and Alfonso. We didn't really get to the aspect about the hate that's allegedly being shown towards Kamala and black women in general, which is the subject of the day, of course. But we kind of got off into how we felt about Kamala as she is on the ticket with Joe Biden. So you can express how you feel about that, and then we can go back to talking about this thing about, do black men hate their black women?
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the one thing that I always try to do is to qualify my communication by always saying I don't talk about from how I feel, because I cannot measure feelings. That is something that is part of my limbic system of the brain. I'm talking about emotions. I try to address situations from a standpoint of logic and from a standpoint of generalization or generalizing. And with that being said, I want to be able to talk about that. Is I am not going to judge. I am happy to see a woman of color, and I'm also happy to see a person that is at least saying what he would like to do for all community. I am not only about empowering blacks, I'm about empowering everyone, every child under God that pretty much serves him. So with that being said, my final thought on that is I will wait before I make an observation, because I can only go by what was done in the past, but her past and his past may not be indicative of what might take place today and tomorrow. So if I'm basing it off of a history book, then we can talk all day, but I'd rather base it off of what I'm going to see today moving forward.
Okay, that's good stuff. I said recently that, and we can end the Kamala topic here, but the way I feel is that, Lisa, we lost you again, darling. The way I feel is that if I was engaged to a beautiful woman that I had fallen in love with, and then I started hearing that she once upon a time was a prostitute, well, I would want to know all that history. It might not change how I feel about that woman. I might still decide to stay engaged, to move forward and marry that woman. But as an intelligent person, I would have to pay attention to her past and the things that can be verified to be factual about this woman, so that I can go into this relationship, this marriage, intelligently and well informed about who I'm marrying. And I feel like we as black people in particular, and people in general, need to know whatever there is to know about Kamala Harris. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, we need to know what her history is, because she may have evolved to be a different person in a different place, but maybe she hasn't. So those past things that she said and the things that are on her record, they're worth being acknowledged and looked into. Would you agree?
Partially. If we are going to elect her based off of her past, yes. But if we're going to elect her based off of hopefully her prophetic vision, then no. If I'm going to marry a person based off, if I want to know a person's past, then I'm judging. And so the question is, what foundation are we living our life? Are we living our life based off of, okay, you've messed up according to how I see you, you've messed up, so therefore you are not a good person, or you are a good person? Are you getting to know her so that you cannot forgive her in the past and question her in the future about her past behavior? or are you looking at her from a clean slate? Now, I'm going to go just make this quick statement. If I'm looking at my life from a biblical perspective, if we're asking Christ to forgive us, then he's forgotten our past. Why am I going to judge someone else's past? It's been acknowledged. She wasn't a part of my life. So why am I going to try to bring that up? Because now I'm going to taint the relationship moving forward.
Okay. And you mentioned Christ in a biblical perspective, and that would certainly take us through down a whole different path, and we will save that conversation for another show.
Correct.
Yeah, I really hate that Lisa's having some complications there, because I really wanted to have a black woman involved in this conversation about black men hating black women. But perhaps she'll get back in here shortly. But until then, let's continue. And what do you guys think about this? I certainly don't believe you two hate or dislike black women. I know that for a fact. And I don't think any intelligent man could possibly hate a black woman, since that's the vessel by which we were all birthed into this world. Although you see a lot of stuff and you see a lot of disrespect from brothers where women are concerned in general. But Alphonso, what's your thoughts on this, man?
The way I've seen it, in most cases, that accusation is just used in a manipulative way. So, for instance, I posted a video. It's got to be all of 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Kamala Harris's words, basically making it sound like it's ridiculous for her to just create the program to support black people only. And then she was at a conversation speaking to the Jewish community, and she openly said her commitment is totally for the Jewish people in the Jewish community. Now, I didn't say that. She said that. But when I posted that video, all of these black women started accusing me of being just like what's expected. Black men are going to start hating a black woman and all of this kind of stuff. And I mean, you know, and just like I said in the earlier part of the conversation, I really don't care about who's vice president or president because of the way the system works. But my whole mission is to encourage people to think. That's it. And we haven't defined manhood. We haven't defined womanhood. We haven't defined any of these things in these words we throw around. And so we're throwing around words that represent a history and culture of somebody else. So even when we make accusations of you don't like black women, black men, what is a black man? What is a black man supposed to be? How are we defining black men? When we say black man, who is that? And what is the context and structure? What is the definition? What is the understanding of what a black man is? You can't accuse me of not being one until we understand what it is. And what, again, I'll say it again. We interact with each other verbally in an extremely haphazard and loose way. And so it allows a lot of room for gray areas and confusion, conflict, and confrontation. So when I listen to that, it means nothing to me. I understand where we are. I understand that we operate with a consciousness created by white people after them having 400 years of control over us. So I understand that we're a little jacked up in the consciousness area. I also understand that we think we're okay because the civil rights movement taught us that if we can do everything that white people can do and have what white people can have and live where white people live and send our kids to school where white people kids go to school, then that meant we were free. So I understand the full context of dynamics that create the situation we're in today. So I don't take it personal or anything like that. I just understand it. And then I continue to move in the space that made sense to me.
Dr. Greg, you got anything on that?
My brother there speaks really linear, and I really appreciate his thoughts. And I do believe that in a sense that there has been a consciousness that has been sort of generated by the majority population. The question that comes about is, first of all, as an individual, I make choices. I get to make choices. Every person on this planet gets to make choices. And as Bell Hooks would say, we have to look at things from a critical conscious perspective. And critical conscious means we have to take the totality of everything and make an informed decision about who we want to be. So I will not speak generally because I am not that arrogant to make a generalized statement about Black people, because as my brother just said, what do we mean when we say Black people? Let's define it from a perspective that everyone will agree, or at least agree to disagree with a definition of it. Now, from a standpoint of Black women, it is a, the one who's destined for power does not necessarily have to fight for it. And I think society has started to give, and it's about time to give women a voice, to give women power. And that link between power and force is being sort of convoluted. You have certain type of power, reference power, or you have absolute power, but you sometimes it might be misconstrued that they're forcing their power on a generation or on people that they believe that have suppressed them. And so this is where you get some of the stereotypes that come about. So it is a sort of a disengaged conversation that will exist. Now, do Black women truly believe Black men hate them? Again, there has to be some context to that. What is it that they are hating? What values are they basing that off of? What principles? What foundation? If they're basing this off of, and I like the guy, but if they're basing this off of a Steve Harvey book that has no intellectual guidance, then we are lost. But if they're basing it off of some type of principle-based linear perspective that they themselves are using as their guiding principles to live, then they have something that can be, communicated and communicated effectively and to be articulated. So I'd like to kind of know, what do they mean by hate? What is it that we hate? Do we resent them being Black women? Do we resent them having power now? Do we are having a voice? Do we resent them standing up for their rights? What is it that we are supposed to be hating?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and I want to allow Luther to address or define what it means when people are saying that we're Black men are hating their Black women. So, Lisa, let me hear from you on that.
I think the last part when he said that, when he said the context of it, I think it's a compilation of everything that he said. Are you able to hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We're getting feedback some kind of way.
It's an echo because the volume of the show is up on somebody's.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Lisa, I think you gotta turn yours down or something.
what about now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still getting the echo. I'm not sure why though.
So do I turn the volume up on my computer or on your, how do I turn the volume up?
That's a very good question, my dear. I'm not really sure. Let's see.
Well, actually, while you talking, you don't need the volume up. So
Right.
you can turn it down while you making your point, and then turn
Oh,
it down.
okay, so I can turn it down and you all can still hear me.
Yeah.
And might want to sit back a little so that you're
Right.
not.
Okay.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's
All
better.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's better. Let me sit all the way back there. Okay, so I think the context is it's a compilation of everything that you said.
Hold on. Can you guys still hear that echo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still getting the echo.
I don't know.
You just technically challenged over there in that little honey
I
hole.
mean, really, I do not know. I done changed to the MacBook, everything.
But-
I don't know what to do.
But
Miss-
did you
It went
turn
away.
the volume down on your MacBook?
It just went away though.
You just took me
I'm
away.
trying. No.
Oh, wait a minute. We're going inside to turn it down on the
It's good now. I don't know
Now
what
it's
happened.
good. It's good.
There you go.
Okay,
There you
it's
go.
good now.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
We good?
Yeah.
We good.
Okay. Okay, I'm losing the train of thought. Okay, I think it's it's everything. It's the history of it. When you look back for centuries, the way that we have been treated by Black men, and I can look back in my own family as I was growing up, how the women in my family were being treated, and I can look back in other people's families, and we can all sort of women can have the same stories. And because I do, I'm in the industry that I deal with a lot of women, 90% of my clients have the exact same story of the abuse and the mistreatment from Black men. So I take it as like you said earlier, people don't want to generalize, but you would have to generalize to get the consensus of what everything that's going on. So I take that in totality, and I look at it to be that we haven't been receiving very good treatment from Black men. And statistically, when you look at domestic violence and you look at the murders of Black women and, the things like that, and the rapes and things like that, I think in its totality, people cannot argue that Black women have not really been treated too good from Black men. And then also to add, when you see that we have independently, I guess, gone a separate way from having to listen to what they have to say or having to be controlled by them because they were the breadwinners before in the previous time. Now we can make our own money. I think that adds on the fury, and it makes them even more furious that we don't have to stand there. If you beat us, we can leave. If you talk to us, disrespectfully, we can leave. If you are a philanderer, we don't have to stay there while you have multiple girlfriends and babies, outside of our relationship. So I think that it's just a pile up of things as to why we feel personally the hatred from Black men.
Okay, hold on.
Add on, you're publicly dating outside your race, and you're publicly telling us that another race is better than your race of women, even if you have not even experienced that. You automatically think that because that race is not Black, that race is better than your women. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay, Dr. Greg, you look like you wanted to say something, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Ms. Smith a question, if she's okay with me asking her a question.
No, go ahead.
She's in the Lions then.
Okay. No, I just wanted to respect her. So, are you indicating that Black women have surrendered power to Black men, and that's why they are being treated that way, because they have surrendered power and that they are supposed to be in this position where they are now not necessarily, and I'm not going to put the term leader, which, but there should be a hierarchy in a family. But the fact is, because they've surrendered power, they can leave because they're being abused. But do you ever try to qualify, and by no stretch do I condone any type of abuse, man, woman, child. I don't condone. It is the most horrific thing you can do. But do women ever say and qualify what they've done? Do they ever try to say, I should not have done X, Y, and Z? Do they ever come out and acknowledge their behaviors?
I think that a lot of times it's real interesting that you ask that, because a lot of times when I'm and I look at Facebook and Instagram comments and things like that, because it's a microcosm. It's everybody from everywhere, you know, and they make their comments. And like, actually, women are also becoming more misogynistic as well. So I think that women are now owning their responsibility in anything that they have done as far as Black men, because they want one so bad. So when I'm looking up and down these timelines, I'm like, wow, it's not just men who are misogynistic. Women are misogynist as well. It's like if a woman gets hurt by a man, they don't say, oh man, I'm so sorry you're hurt. They say, what did you do? What did you do to him? You know what I'm saying? So I do think that we are owning responsibility, but I cannot take away that the fact that we are more liberated upsets Black men. It does upset them. It's like, who do you think you are that, you know, if I do one thing wrong to you, that you have the right to leave? You know, they don't think that we should leave with anything, and they definitely don't think we should stay with anything. So it's like really trauma-based relationships that we are in, because we are liberated now. Now we can just up and leave it. Like before, my grandmother could not leave. My great-grandmother, because she didn't know how to fend for herself. She didn't know how to survive, you know, whatever, because her husband was the breadwinner, was taking care of her. So she had to accept all of the multiple women and the drinking and the abuse and things like that. And that is identifiable in most Black families. She had to accept it, but I don't have to accept it. My mother didn't have to accept it. You know what I'm saying? So at some point we broke that generational curse, but most of the time women feel like they have to do all of these extra things. Oh, you have to keep a man. And if you go around family members who are women, they qualify you based on a man. If you tell a man you don't want to be bothered, he qualifies you only if you say, I have a man. I can't say, no, I don't like you. I just don't want to be with you. I have to say a man is somewhere involved. So it just seems like, for me, it's very dangerous to victimize the men, because at some point they are the aggressors and they are the strong. They're stronger than us. They can physically hurt us, you know, and it's almost like dangerous to victimize them versus a woman, because a man could stand up for himself. He can physically stand up for himself. He can physically hurt me. He can physically hurt whoever, but I don't condone women doing anything physically to a man. But I'm just saying, if a man is physically hurting a woman, I'm not clear on, I'm going to say a Black woman, because if it's a white woman, people seem to sympathize a little better. Okay. When a man physically hurts, for instance, Meg the Stallion, she got shot in her feet by a man, but everybody's looking to victimize the man. They're like, what did she do to him? How did she deserve that? Because Black women are usually the strong, you know, women, and we did something to deserve every punishment that we get, and whatever we get, we deserve somehow is the conversation around our community. And so no one really supports us in a sympathetic way. We don't get any sympathy. It's almost like, you know, if the man is going through something and he did something, it's always like, oh, well, you know, he didn't have a father. We have to understand men are going through, you know, we always try to figure out, why did they go through that? What happened to make them feel the way they did? But when we do something, she a hoe, she a bitch, she a that, you know, it's never like, well, what about how she grew up? She just grew up wrong. We have to be there for her. You know, it's never that kind of conversation surrounding women, but we do coddle men, because to us, men are what we are supposed to aspire to get. That's the how our community perceives relationships. It's like, who cares if you get a woman? But the men, if she don't have a man, even if you're arguing with men, if you get in an argument with men and you're single getting in an argument, you don't have any base. You don't have any foundation. But if you have a ring, it's like, okay, well, we can't go after that. But if she's single and arguing with me, that's why you don't have a man. Look at you. You gonna be single. You know, it's just like, it's not that we don't think that we shouldn't take responsibility, but I think that we are victimizing men in a way that is dangerous to me.
Well, let me just ask this question, because you mentioned about men having several women and all that kind of stuff, and it seems that to me it just made me think that maybe there's some lack of love between black women if the ones that men are cheating with know this man is married in certain instances and continue to see that man. That's a lack of love for that sister that he's married to. So isn't there something to be said about how black women view each other in addition to how black men view women?
No, because I don't think that's her responsibility. You're putting the responsibility, again, you skipped a whole married man who had vows to this woman.
Oh no, I'm not saying he's right. He's not right at all, but it takes two to tango.
You put the responsibility, you took it off of someone who is loyal to this woman and put it on somebody who could care less about that's not her problem. Him being married is his problem. And we do that a lot too. We take the responsibility off of that. No one should be responsible for that but that man who is cheating. That woman he's cheating with, she doesn't owe her any loyalty. You're saying because she's from one black woman to another, that's not her job to respect this man's marriage. It's his job to respect it.
I agree that it's his job.
If you're cheating, you don't know what physical or mental state she's in for needing a man. I don't know what she might be going through to mess with a married man, but he definitely knows he's married. She don't have to know. He definitely knows.
Okay.
But you still erased responsibility from this is what we do.
I wasn't erasing it. I just wanted to deal with that perspective, but
that is sort of erasing it.
Okay. So Alphonso, his specialty is harmonious and productive communication. And he deals a lot with relationships and how that plays a role. So based on what you just heard, Alphonso, I want you to give us your perspective on that.
Well, one of the things that I deal with is human behavior, because we can come up with 100,000 details associated with why we're having challenges with each other and point to many, many things and reasons why we show each other disrespect. Again, this is not to blame history, but it is to help us understand the context from which we come. We come from a context where our consciousness was controlled for 400 years, and we are the byproduct of that occurrence. So when I talk to men and women, I talk from a human place. So self-respect. What is self-respect? Self-respect is when you care enough about yourself that you don't put yourself in positions of extended discomfort. When you have self-respect, you don't put yourself in the position of being uncomfortable, or you don't allow yourself to stay in a position of being uncomfortable for an extended period of time. It also means that even if you are in a position where you are uncomfortable and you know it, you don't accept it. When you have self-respect, you craft a plan and you begin executing the plan and you get on with life. Because what happens is when we compromise our self-respect, and a sign of compromising our self-respect is when we accept something that we don't like for an extended period of time, and we continue to be uncomfortable. And then after a while, that discomfort transitions to anger. And then if we continue in that position, that anger transitions to depression. And so, and resentment. And so when I talk about these things, that's the foundation that I move from. Because from a universal standpoint, these are the things that are really important. And how much respect do we have for ourselves? For instance, I can't be resentful towards a woman if every time I'm with her, she smokes a 40 and a blunt and I don't like it. I can't be resentful to her if that's not my thing. Because if it's not my thing, then I don't accept it for any reason. I don't rationalize and have reasons for accepting she has to wake up with a 40 and a blunt. I don't want a woman that has to wake up to a 40 and a blunt. That's just my preference. So rather than, because of all of these wonderful things I do like about her, accept this thing that's gnawing at me, what happens is after a while, like I said, I become angry about it. I start arguments about things that have nothing to do with the argument I'm starting, but with my problem I'm having with the 40 and the blunt. And all of this stuff starts transitioning and creeping and spreading into other things that create messes. So it is in my best interest to have the conversation. And if that's what she's doing, that's cool, because that's who she is. But then in order to maintain my self-respect, I have to bow out gracefully. And then what happens is I don't build a certain disposition towards women because I continue to accept that. I'm not upset with her. I'm not upset with women. I'm good. Even in the salon where I work, I notice with a lot of sisters, the most angry sisters are the ones that accepted extended discomfort for a long time. And the ones who aren't upset are the ones who said, baby, I love you to death, but you are not the one, because this is not acceptable. And they keep it moving. So I approach it from a universal place, because we can deal with going back and forth about the details from now to 1,000 years from now.
So the angry sisters, I'm trying to get the context of what you're saying. The angry sisters that you work with, they're only angry based on a relationship that they had accepted in the past, or how do you determine what their anger is about?
When I talk to them, because this is what I talk about. This is my thing. This is what we do. So I'm not assuming she's angry because of anything. I'm talking and I'm listening.
But is she angry just walking around, just an angry person? What are you saying? Or is she angry about the topic?
When she has a certain disposition towards men.
Okay.
And so when she has a certain disposition towards men, and I begin asking questions, most of the time in my experience in the last 30 years in the hair salon, the situation has been, she has been in a situation, is there's certain things that she doesn't like, but has continued to accept them. And then I identify that as compromising your own self-respect. And I also talk about how that's going to continue transitioning into other things that are negative.
So does that follow with the angry men as well? Are the men angry because of the same thing as well?
If you notice, I said I move from a universal standpoint. Everything that I'm saying about self-respect, discomfort, anger, depression, all of this is not mutually exclusive to blacks, whites, greens, males, females. Everybody, men, women, everybody deals with these situations when they begin compromising their self-respect. It's not a gender thing. It's a human thing.
You have a rebuttal? Does that make sense, or you gonna just leave it there?
I hear what he's saying, but what my problem is the conversation is not about a universal thing of black, white, green, and purple. It's about the black community. It's about black men and women. So what I'm saying, what I'm asking is because the connotation of angry black woman, that's being used, I'm trying to figure out how do you determine if it's just is it just the people in your salon, or are you saying you can identify when you're talking to black women and they have some sort of anger, you sense that it's from a previous situation that they didn't leave appropriately, whatever.
Well, let me just say this. My concern is black people, period. The other thing that I know about us historically, we just got involved in this race-based thinking a few hundred years ago. Before that, we moved from universal concepts. That helped us understand life from a broad view. It is the period of enslavement that has us locked in a box called race and seeing things based on race. So what I'm saying is that the greatest power that we can have as black people is to look at whatever our challenges are from a universal place, because we can then have a true solid foundation to move from and understanding how to move. So for me, for me, it is about black people, but the solutions for me, for black people, have to be rooted in universal understandings. And that's why I speak from a universal place. When I said black, white, green, Puerto Rican, that's just for me.
Understanding how all races work.
What I'm saying is it's not about all races. It's about where we come from, which is a universal place. And so
okay, I see what you're saying.
So that's all I'm saying. And everything that I'm saying applies to both men and women. It's not mutually exclusive to gender. But that's something that we have to come to understand, because we're caught up in the black male versus the black woman. I don't believe in this angry black woman stuff. I don't believe in this angry black man stuff. Scott and I, we were just talking the other day, and I was telling men, it never makes sense to get in an argument with women. It never makes sense, because you're gonna lose. You're gonna take an L. If you're a black man and you get in an argument with a black woman, you're gonna take an L. If it's in public, you look like a big brute beast bully. If it's in private, you're a big brute beast bully who's hiding from people. At the end of the day, as a man, women outthink us, women outverbalize us, women out understand us as it relates to life in general, just because of a certain kind of, in my perspective, and based on my limited understanding of things, there's no win in an argument with a woman. So the best thing as a black man that we can do when we're talking about our people is men have to, if we truly want success, we always have to move from a place of understanding when we're dealing with our women. We always have to want to understand and resolve, understand what the challenge is, and speak from a place of resolving that challenge. That's the best place for us to come from. If we're not coming from that place and we start raising our voices, the raising your voice, punching the wall, slamming doors, that's an indication that you're taking an L and you got to reevaluate. So that's why I always suggest that we do not get ourselves in arguments with women. So I speak on both sides of the coin, and the angry black man, the angry black woman, this, that, and the, I don't get involved in that kind of world right there.
Yeah.
Because all it does is continue to antagonize and create interactions where people are being defensive and they just want to defend their position in their place.
So let me just let the people know that what Alphonso just said about not arguing with women. Now, I don't typically argue with women a whole lot, but when he said that to me, it just resonated and it just made so much sense. So from that moment to present day and moving forward, I listen, and then I'm like, okay, what's the resolution? Let's figure out how to resolve this situation to make it better and more comfortable for everybody involved. So I just have to say that was some of the best advice that I've heard. That's probably the best thing that's happened to me in 2020, to be quite frank with you.
So, let me ask y'all this: in a resolution, forward-thinking motion, do you think that Black women, aren't doing what they need to do as far as Black men? Do you not think that we're doing all that we can when it comes to supporting Black men? I don't know if it is that we're misconstruing what supporting Black men is or not, but it looks to me, from my vantage point, like when I deal with my clients or whatever, that most of them are in a situation where they are, if not just supporting, they are financially supporting, or they're just, a man lives in their home, or, something like that. And they're trying to do whatever that thing is that they're saying to get a man. It just seems like Black women are jumping through these hoops to try to do it. So, but from your vantage point as men, do y'all not think that is what's happening, or what is happening? What do y'all think?
Okay, so for me, being a hairstylist as well, I hear conversations after conversations about relationships that women have with their men, and I think it goes back to kind of what Alphonso was saying, where our consciousness has been misguided because of our history and what we view success, whether it's success in a relationship or success in your family or your business or whatever. We base that success on what we've seen from other people, and that's a big problem in relationships in general. And I think a lot of times the expectations of people in their relationships, as misconstrued as it may be, it's what presents the biggest challenge, because the expectations overall are unrealistic. Like,
right.
For example, most people think that you fall in love, you get married, you have children, you buy a house, and everything is just flowery. And that's just complete bullshit. It don't work like that.
They don't factor in the other stuff.
Yeah, what'd you say?
I said they don't factor in that our community struggles are different than.
Absolutely. And then, the way the experiences people have had in their lives, as a child, as a teenager, as a young man or a young woman, like all these different things that people experience, it plays a major role in how you move within your own relationship and what your expectations of that relationship are. Because if you grew up without your father, then you may not know how to be a father, and you might have to just figure it out if you didn't have someone to show you those things. Or if you grew up and you have your mother, then you don't know the things that a woman needs to know that they're typically taught by their mother at those formative years. So, it's a lot of variables, I think, in these relationships and how they work. You may not know how. Dr. Gray, this sounds like something that you have some expertise on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So real quick. So thank you, guys. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. It just, our conversation, just to me, it appears fragmented. There's just so many things that we are addressing, and I think that but we're addressing it all within the construct of the critical race perspective. And when we talk about culture of things, and so I understand that we're coming from a point of PTSD, and what I would probably call post-traumatic slave disorder. We're looking at things from that perspective. Now, I'm going to go back real quick and then I'll come forward in the interest of brevity to be done with it. World War II created a paradoxical relationship with Black men and women. When Black men were accepted as family in the war, when they came back, they were not. So when they went to war, the Black women took the jobs. The white men, the white women took their jobs. But when they came back home, the white women gave up their jobs, but the Black women didn't give up their jobs. So therein starts this, first of all, this drug infested heroin, we call it the soldier's disease trauma, where Black men were using drugs because they were not going to be hired any longer. They were considered second-class citizens when they came back from fighting in World War II. So that started a revolution, a beginning of challenges for Black men. Now, with that being said, as we sort of leap ahead, what I call the Whip Van Winkle sleep, because we've been asleep for many years, and then we woke up to now this new reality of things. The one thing I haven't heard about is, what are we doing in courting? What is our courting process? What is that all about? Are we courting from a standpoint of a foundation that gets us to know someone and based off of self-esteem, based off of self-efficacy, self-confidence? Are we getting to know that person before we sleep with that person? Because that then causes a unique shift in how we view that person later, because now we become attached emotionally to that person, and thus we start to see that, okay, I really didn't get to know this person, and then we get angry at the man or we get angry at the woman because after you slept with them, now you have a unique attachment with them, and now all of a sudden somebody else has to blame for the mistake or the decision, your choice that you've made. So what about courting? What does courting look like today within the Black community? My last relationship, I dated for about 5 months. I would not touch her physically because I wanted to get to know who she was. I would not touch her. I just thought that if I touch her in a physical, intimate manner, then I knew, okay, I was going to stop growing with her. After about, doing some praying, and after about 4 months, 5 months, then I started to see some patterns of behaviors that she could not hide, that I knew were, as Mr. Alphonso said, were inconsistent to what I wanted. The selfishness, incredibly selfish. And so I said, you know what? As I tried to work through it, it wasn't changing. And so I was able to come out without destroying her self-esteem and without destroying mine, because I did not cheapen her through sexual contact. So I have to ask this question: what does courting in the Black community look like? And then I still want to know what the Black community is based off this conversation.
Go ahead, Alphonso. I want you to address that question right there.
Well, the root foundation for courting in the so-called Black community is totally and completely related to church upbringing. And that has been the basis for and foundation for courting among Black people since we were introduced or reintroduced to the scriptures when we got here as enslaved people. But if you want to know about, from what I've come to understand, again, based on my own limited understanding of things, the root foundation of courting from African people historically started a long time ago. And we moved from a foundation of what was called cultural body foundation, meaning that each person in the group understood their position, just like our body parts. Each one of our body parts has a significant function as it relates to the complete function of our body. And the better each of those body parts work, the better our bodies function. So we come from that community, even before so-called kings and queens and all of that kind of stuff. So what I'm saying is that another part of the foundation that we come from is, I call these three basic steps, and a procreation. This procreation foundation was rooted in our parents knowing us better than we knew ourselves. They had an understanding of astrology and the stars. They had an understanding of when we came into this existence and the significance of the time we came into this existence. So many times early in our existence, our parents picked our mates because it had nothing to do with how much we liked each other. What it was connected to was our compatibility based on a group of things. I'm making this real short, a short version of procreation. So we were raised. It was the responsibility. Right now, if you ask adults what is their responsibility for the children, and we'll say, to feed them, clothe them, make sure they go to school, all that good stuff. But at the heart of every relationship we were in, our purpose for existing was for the children, and to make sure the children understood that their life is a preparation to bring forth life. So we didn't have people getting 18, 19, 25 saying, oh, I'm gonna stop drinking while I'm pregnant. Or we didn't have men, oh, I'm gonna stop doing this. My life changed since I had my son. We didn't have those kind of discussions because we were born in an environment that we were taught from the beginning of life that our existence was a preparation to bring forth life. And everything that we represented mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally was being passed on to that child. Today, we're told that, oh, if your grandmother had cancer, that probably got passed to you. If they had high blood pressure and they tell you this stuff, they don't tell us that everything is passed. Not just negative diseases, but everything from mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, everything is passed. So now when you have two young people growing up with that understanding and their life is a preparation to bring forth life, and they understand that even as adults, it is their responsibility to prepare young people to understand that their life is a preparation to bring forth life, and so on and so on and so on. You have these two healthy people whose entire life revolved around preparing to bring forth life. So this is what I call preconception in the procreation understanding that we once lived in. Preconception is the preparation. The point of conception is when two people come together, having prepared themselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally to bring forth this child. And the ultimate experience is when that child is made manifest through a simultaneous climax. If you can only imagine two healthy people who've prepared for their entire lives to bring forth life have a simultaneous climax. Do you understand the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional explosion going into the creation of that life? And now you have that egg or that zygote, and everything is in that egg. Every single thing that's going to represent that life is in that egg. And so that's the point of conception. And then you have post-conception. During post-conception is where you have that incubatory, that 9-month period to prepare the child. You can introduce that child to languages. You can introduce that child to music. The men understood that their presence, their energy, had just as much impact on that child in the womb as the very mother has. So a man made sure his mind and his energy and his spirit was right when he's in the direct presence of that child, because his energy is felt by that child just like it's felt by the mother. And they go through 9 months preparing this child. And they first trimester, they might introduce this child to their first language, and they're talking to the child in that language. They're introducing the child to music. They're talking to the child. They're introducing the child to all of the things they want this child to get ready for. That second trimester, they might introduce that child to French, and they start talking French, and they start reading French, and they start playing French music. And then that third trimester, they'll introduce that child to Chinese or whatever that they want that child to hold on to, grasp to, be comfortable with coming out of the womb. That's what they introduce that child to through this process. And then you have post-conception, When you have a child created in this way, and then a community of children created in this way. This is why you have pyramids and you have so many other things that this world, with all its technology and all of its geniuses and all of the people with all of the knowledge, can't explain how some people did some things 3, 4, and 5 and 10,000 years ago. Because this is gone, this is missing. The true understanding of procreation is totally out of here. So now we have people like Dr. Phil. How does it make you feel when he does this? And how does she make you feel when she does that? And the child is somewhere raising themselves because the parent is not functioning from a place of their purpose in life is to make sure their child understands that their life is a preparation to bring forth life. So now we have what I call post-conception. Post-conception is the magic, man. When that child comes out of the womb, that child is ready for the world, man. If you can only understand what I just explained and the child produced in that manner, and when it comes out of the womb, and then we also understand that we can have 2 blue-black parents, and that child can come out of the womb bright white with blue eyes, because we are responsible for creating everything, and we don't have 2 parents looking at each other like somebody was cheating. We understand that that child represents the entire historic genetic reality of both people involved, and anything in that genetic reality can reveal itself in that child. That child can end up walking like a great grandfather he never met. These are natural things that we came from understanding at one point. So when we talk about a foundation of what relationships represent today, what relationships and courting represents today has nothing to do with where we come from. This is why I say it's so important for us to understand that we are functioning with a consciousness created by white people. And that's just the truth. Over 400 years, they had unedited, uninterrupted control over us. And this is why none of us have any understanding, any knowledge of why we behave and function the way we do, because we're missing this. If we just had that foundation of what true procreation was about, it could impact our lives and the lives of our future children. If our daughters started truly learning about what procreation about, if our young sons and boys truly learned what procreation was about and that process, even if they chose.
We lost you. We can't hear you, man. We can't hear you.
He hit the mute button.
You better hit the mute button, maybe. No, sir. Had a lot of technical difficulties, but this has been an explosive conversation nonetheless. I think we got you back. Say something again, man.
No, he's not back.
No, it's that little sign on his thing that's mute.
The microphone has a line through it.
Yeah, it has a line through it on mine. Look at your mute. Look at your microphone, Alphonso.
It's on his computer.
We still can't hear you.
He's talking in.
Okay.
So Greg, let me ask you this. Do you think that it could be because of what women are told as far as dating versus what, well, I'm going to say girls are taught when they're going out into the world to date and what boys are taught when they go out into the world to date? So like when it comes to how dating and relationships are going today, I think it stems from the beginning. So like, I do understand and clearly understand what Alphonso was talking about. We had 400 years of, white people controlling our minds and things like that. But fast forwarding it to like right now, to the disaster that has happened right now, it seems as though when we are young, we're taught 2 separate things and neither one of those collide together. So like, for instance, the men are taught, you don't just settle down with no one person. You got to go try, you know what I'm saying? You got to try more than one. You don't know what you might want. But meanwhile, all of this trying, that's sex, and sex creates babies. So we don't factor in that message to men that if you keep trying everybody, you're gonna have a baby. You know what I'm saying? And then women are taught to go out there and have a relationship with a man and get married and that, you know, picket fence, that dream that Scott was talking about and all of that. So those two things are not connecting. So like men really are trying, I don't know what world y'all are looking at, but men really are trying to screw everybody in the world. Like they won't stop. And so that is like, so when we get, by the time we figure out like, man, they're really not trying to be with one woman. The women then in turn try to get some power back by saying, oh, I don't want no men. I mean, I want several men too. So then you created the Cardi B's and the Meg the Stallions. And then you're mad at the Cardi B's because they took their power back, so they think. And which I tell all my clients when they speak like that, you still lost. You can't go out there being what these men are being. You know what I'm saying? But back to the point, they created these Cardi B's and now they're upset. And then women aren't taking this power back and I want this. And I just want them for the sex. So they can get out my way and they can get out my face. But you're still not winning because when you don't have one, you're still sad. But in all, men are taught one thing and women are taught another. And it's not connecting. It's going separate ways is what I think is happening today. And the younger they are, the more they want to go they want to just go crazy with it. And no one's having the idea of relationship anymore. Pretty soon, marriage is going to be a distant memory because everybody is so independent with what they want to do. And then now they're spilling over into the other communities. Oh, they got more choices, you know, of how many people they can have and this and that. So it's a mess. And I'm not sure how to get it back. You know, like, yeah, there are some people out here and there are some guys out here that aren't interested in that kind of thing, but it's like two of them.
Well, I'm one of them. I'm one of them now. I'll be about to be that
It's like two guys out here like that, and the women are fighting for those two guys. And then, like, if I a person with a personality like mine, right? It took me longer to meet my guy, the kind of pedigree that I like. It took me longer. You know, it took me a lot of like lonely times because I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't have to do that. And I feel like that. I really feel like that with anybody. You don't come at me sideways. The pedigree got to be right, or you can just go ahead. Like, I can be by myself. And I think that men have taken that out of context when Black women say, oh, I'd rather be by myself. It's not that we want to be by ourselves. It's I'd rather be by myself than to deal with the masses of just mess that comes with these men. So they'll say, I just don't want the headache. I just be by myself. But a lot of those women really don't be by themselves. They say it, but they don't really take the time to be like, I'm just going to stay with myself and look at why I've been making these messed up decisions with these men, these kind of men that I'm choosing. And I don't even like to use the word choosing because there shouldn't be such a pile up of messy men. It shouldn't be this many. That's ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous. But anyway, so they don't take the time to stay by themselves and just look at yourselves. I tell my clients, what, you don't like yourself? Like, you can't sit down by yourself and be with yourself until you figure out what's right for you. But then they say, well, you know, Lisa, you can say that because, you know, they say what I look like or whatever. And they say it as though I have more options. So you can say that. But I say, but if I'm single and look like this, we're going through the same thing, even though you look like how you think you look. You know what I'm saying? It's still, the problem is we need to be able to be by ourselves to decide and get it back in our court to where we're the decision makers and not allow them to have us running around here just looking crazy. We look crazy trying to swing from chandelier, do this, cook, clean, be domesticated. I got to do this. Oh, I can get a man like this if I do it this way, but you can't. He's only going to be with what he want to be with. And that's just period. It don't matter if she can't cook. I done seen plenty of men with people who can't cook. You know what I'm saying? We think that it's a certain formula. So I'm going to be the best girl. We call them pick me girls. So they're going to be the best thing that it could be so that a man can choose them. And I think that that's a level of desperation. I think everybody should sit with themselves and be deciders in the future. They're not deciding, they're being chosen. And I'm not going to let someone just keep picking me. I'm going to pick you. How about that?
Okay.
So that's how these women need to decide. They need to choose and stop letting these men take them.
I know for a fact that what you're saying is what's real for you, because I know you will definitely look at the dude like, nah, that ain't it. That ain't the pedigree I'm looking for. I know that about you. And I know dudes are always coming at you like that. When we worked in my salon together, people would just walk by in the door and be looking. We had a staff full of beautiful people, and Lisa was certainly one of them. And they would come. Sometimes they'd ask me about where's that girl at. So I definitely know that dudes are always coming at you, and they're coming at you sideways. If they don't come correct, they will get shut down.
Right. But I had to stop taking that as a compliment. It's not a compliment because it's too many of you. So y'all all single? No, y'all all got somebody. Y'all don't care. So I had to stop in my brain and say, it's no longer a compliment when I go in the gas station and tons of men are bothering me because you don't want nothing. You don't want nothing anyway.
Oh, Lisa.
It's not a compliment anymore because it's too many. So all of y'all are single. Like, come on. They're not. They just want what they want. And all of them be having women. They have women. And so that's how I had to look at it from that perspective. But when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, I'm cute. You know, they look at me because I'm cute. No, they just want to see what they can get. And now that I'm, as I gotten older, I don't look at it as a compliment because I see how when a white woman go by, you get yourself together. You get nervous. You don't know how to respond to her. And that's how you need to come at me then. You don't come at me all raggedy and ready. And then with her, you prepare yourself. No, Negro, you're going to come at me the way you come at her. Prepare yourself. Don't just be coming at me. You ain't got nothing. You don't have no house, nowhere to live, nothing.
Miss Lisa.
Approach me. That's how I feel.
Miss Lisa.
If you thought I was special, you will go get yourself right together and then come to me. But no, you come raggedy. They come raggedy. They don't care. So when they be like, oh, you so beautiful. I'm not that beautiful. Because when you come at me, you don't come at me like I'm beautiful. I don't feel good. It's a hot mess. It's hot in here. I don't like it.
I want Dr. Greg to respond to you. Dr. Greg, he right above you. He in stitches, boy. Like he at the show. He getting his best life right now. So I want to hear your thoughts on what Lisa's saying, Dr. Greg.
Miss Lisa. Ooh.
I mean, it's real out here in these streets.
All right. So I never got, one of the worst things I ever try to do is talk about my profession. So as a, practicing mental health, performance psychologist, licensed sex therapist, behavioral therapist, all of these, and a professor, you define at an HBCU, you define a genre of females and a genre of men. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. Mm-hmm. Is it important for the man to find you or for you to find the man?
I think that a man should find the woman.
Okay.
Because it'll throw the dynamic off.
Okay. So if the man is finding you, what is the first thing you want him to see? Your assets or your incest?
We know that's not.
What is it that you want him to see?
I wish they could see my incest.
Okay.
But I know that's not how that works. And I get it.
Are you sure? Because it is how it works. You have generalized all men. You have generalized men, and instead of accepting the fact that there are individuals out there, although it may be far and very few between, there are very good black men out there that want to know, first of all, who you are, and because you are beautiful, that is second nature.
I
That
agree.
is second nature. However, you have minimized their chances of looking at who you are because everyone is raggedy now. All of we're all raggedy, correct?
No, listen to what I'm saying. I was really like making jokes towards the end, but I have the capacity to identify who's coming at me with some sense and who's not. So I hate to tell you, I've been in this skin for a very long time. As a whole, what has been coming at me has been a hot mess. Only a select few is what I'm saying. So I do have to somewhat generalize. I can't do it from like just a myopic scope, like, okay, well, this one. No, I have to generalize because that's like something bad is happening to you, right? Over and over again by this red animal. Okay, so every time this red animal comes at you, something bad is happening. So they say that, well, one of the red animals are good. So I'm not going to keep getting attacked by these red animals to find that good one. You have to really come to me with the presentation that you are serious. I got the capacity to know. But a lot of these men, and I don't know, y'all must be in some other worlds or something, because I don't know. You may hang around some really good guys, and you all must hang around some really good people. But when I go in conversation, like I go with my boyfriend to the barbershop and we get in conversations or whatever, it's really crazy. Like, so I'm there and you talking like this. So like when like I'm there and you're talking about women to the capacity of what you're going to do to them. You know what I'm saying? But when I leave, I know you're talking raggedy. Y'all are acting as though y'all don't know what I'm talking about, and that's all fine. But
no, I know what you're talking about.
From his perspective, what I have been greeted with, and you know darn well, and I do not carry myself in no sexual manner. I don't carry myself like provocative look. I don't dress provocative. I don't dress like that. I don't act like that. But you still come to me in that way. So if I give my number out to everyone then y'all leave the responsibility up to us to identify the right one too. So now I have to identify who might be right for me and not generalize that they all might be wrong for me.
Okay, Miss Lisa. So do you need rejection rehab or relationship rehab? Which one?
Oh.
I'm asking because it just seems that there is you have passion about what has happened in your life.
Not specifically in my life. I'm talking from a general consensus with women. I deal with women. So like a lot of things may not, I'm just as passionate about people who have been raped. I've never been raped. I'm just passionate about a woman who has died. I never died. So it's not like everything is about what has particularly happened to me. It's what I hear from different women, and I'm in a field of women. So I can't ignore and say, well, y'all don't make no sense. It doesn't make, when some of it has happened to me too. So I can't, I can identify with what they're saying. Although the person I have now is a beautiful person. I only date black men. I'm not going to ever date another race. I love black men. I'm telling you from my perspective and my experience, looking the way that people say I look, what comes at me. It's my experience too.
It's your experience. So
it's a lot of my experience, and then it's a lot of who I've spoken with and who I sit down, friends, my clients. It's so many women that I deal with the same identifiable experiences.
So Ms. Lisa, then we have written as Black people, and I think Mr. Alfonso has said it, but we continue to write history books as to what has happened. What is the manual that we need to implement to change the perspective of what you're saying? Because we can all become experts on our opinion, but we're not experts on our own facts.
I have a solution. I think, and y'all are going to get upset with me. I don't know why this makes Black men upset. I think Black men need to take back control of their leadership. I think they should, instead of damaging and discarding the community, come in and build and uplift the community. I think that, I know that the numbers have changed, although it's not mythical that men are leaving their children behind for women to raise. I think that Black men should come in, instead of finding ways to damage situations, uplift it, build it up, and not be so quick to just be around here just all willy-nilly with their behaviors concerning the women. And I know that y'all are men, so you may have a different vantage point, but I'm a woman and I know what happens to women. I know the vile stories that happen to women. I know the deep, dirty stories that happen to women from men. And I think that instead of them coming at us and looking at us as something to discard and damage, if they lifted us up, our community would be so much better, because we're still trying to do it regardless. We're doing it while we're being torn down. We're still uplifting it. And we're still, against popular belief, we are still looking after Black men. You go to the jails, we're looking after you there. Y'all ain't at our jails. Y'all not at our jails looking after us. There's no Black male visitors visiting the Black women in jail, but the Black men jails look like a club, because we're out there seeing about our Black men. So I get confused when they say they hate Black women, but when every cause that happens, Black women are on the front line. When something happens, you get shot down by police or anything like that, Black women are on the front line. These racially ambiguous women that Black men love so much, they're not on the front line. We're there. Black women are there standing up for our Black men, because we have Black sons and things like that. But it's not reciprocated. It's not reciprocated, because when Black women get killed by police or die, they don't tear the city up for her. Black men don't tear the city up for Atiana, a little girl who got shot or killed. They don't get angry about anything, the 65,000 Black girls that are missing. Black men don't get upset. They don't care about that kind of thing. But if something happens to a Black man, Black women and Black men are tearing the city up about it.
Well,
So
I think we get upset about that kind of stuff. I think
I agree.
Not as a whole. No.
Yeah, it might not be as a collective body of Black men, but I think the people that
Not
I
a
know,
large number.
yeah, the people that I know and that I associate with, oh yeah, it hits us right in the center of our soul. I think there are a lot more of us than maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Counted.
And I think it's a large number.
You say it's the same. It's the same outrage. Is what you're saying.
Yes, and probably.
Yeah, I think it's the same outrage when it's perpetuated by someone outside of the Black race. Like if somebody white does harm to a Black woman or a Black man or something like that, then everybody is enraged. But when it's Black on Black, when it's us doing things to each other, then it's not as much. But so
with Breonna Taylor, you say it's the same outrage as with George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, all of those other killings by white people. You say that Breonna Taylor's murder was handled the same outrage in the same.
I don't. Let me make a comment. I don't necessarily. No, I agree. There's this thing called intersectionality, and intersectionality means that something happens to a woman, but it's more specific to a Black woman. So it's and as this woman, I forgot the lady's name that created intersectionality, but it's now a movement, because even on college campuses, if you are not familiar with intersectionality, you need to get familiar with it, because it is literally the Breonna Taylors of our world that have been impacted not just because she's a female, but because she's a Black female.
Mm-hmm.
And so this movement, here's my last point. We do care, but because Black men have been so brutalized, we are afraid that if we try to jump in, we're going to get shot. We're going to get killed. When we're driving down the road, we get pulled over. Our anxiety increases tenfold because we want to. And although I think it's changing a little bit, understand this, Miss Lisa, we care tremendously as to what happens to our Black sisters. And I think I can speak in general that I would imagine more Black men care than not.
I agree with that.
That's because y'all care. You agree? I don't agree with that. I tried to look at it from every angle, and I'm looking around. I don't agree with that. I don't see that.
Okay, so
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking.
Okay, so I wanted to get Alphonso to say some last words concerning this because he was really saying some good stuff and then got cut off, and then we got on to some other stuff, so he never really got to finish. But before I let him say something, you asked a question at the very beginning of what you just said, but then it went on into some other stuff, and I almost forget what it was, but it was something about what boys and girls see or what they're taught. They're being taught different things and so forth and so on. That's what the part you said. And I certainly think that what we're taught as boys and girls, it's a lot of things wrong with those things that we're taught. And that's why we end up where we end up in our relationships. And like you said, what little boys are taught and what they see and what they perceive is that you're supposed to get as many girls as you can get. You got to be coy so you can play them and have one over here. I once had this dude tell me when I was in college, right? He said, Scotty, it just don't make no sense. You running around here broke. All these girls after you got to get one to put gas in your car.
I can't see.
One to pay your rent. One to come over and cook. You got to work them, baby. That's what he told me, And I'm not that kind of dude, but to understand it,
the option was there.
But that was how he really thought things should be because he was my next door neighbor, and that's what he would do, and it was working for him, So imagine if he had a son, and he's raising his son, and he's telling his child that kind of stuff. You see what I'm saying? So we're being taught really detrimental things as young men and women, and by the time we get of age, we just screwed up on both sides, and that's a problem.
Freestyling,
right? But then you were talking about guys coming at you and this, that, and the third, and I know you don't dress provocatively and all that kind of stuff, but you also have one of those figures that's kind of hard to conceal, like my wife. My wife can't really put on something that doesn't show her figure. And but then there are a lot of women that go out and buy the sexiest of outfits. I was coming up here today and saw somebody walking with those tights that's so popular now. And now when you see a woman with a nice figure walking with some tights, it has the ability to make you forget everything you were about to do. It's like you're going to hit.
What you looking at?
Yeah, because you see one side, you see the other side, and all of a sudden you start looking, and it's almost like you've been hypnotized. You know what I'm saying? So, but then it's a lot of women that wear stuff like that, and I often wonder, when these women get dressed and they wear this stuff with their cleavage out and these real fitted clothes and stuff, and then they go out and the guy that they're not looking to compliment them compliments them, then they get mad because this dude is giving them attention. Don't you expect to get attention when you choose to dress a certain way like that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we got a lot of challenges with our relationship dynamics and how we get.
Okay, so real quick about that. That's the Cardi B's I was talking about that were created.
Right.
So like when you go, the guy that you were talking about that told you to go out here and do all this, that. Right. Just imagine the masses and the mass amount of men that are having that mentality. They have that mentality, right? So you've damaged and discarded these people. They go in a pile. Where do you think that pile is going to go? What do you think is going to happen to that pile of women that are damaged and discarded? You think that they just disappear? No, they become what you see. They become promiscuous. They become like feeling unimportant. And when Alphonso was talking about self-esteem and having the self-respect and stuff, they don't have it. They have been damaged, discarded by so many. So your friend does that to 10 women, then he hang around people that do the same thing to 10 other women. There's a pile of women that are over there. They go somewhere. Where do you think they go?
Yeah, you're right. But I agree with you.
No, they become that. That's what they become.
Well, let me ask Alfonso, because I would tell you I'm a Q, and all of a sudden I'm supposed to be a dog because I'm a Q. And I'm going to ask Alfonso, and I'm going to look at school days and all that. We from phenotype of skin color to pledging certain fraternity, although I live by the cardinal principles of Omega, I'm a Q dog the first time. So I don't even tell people that I'm an Omega. But if they ask, I'll let it know. Oh, you're a Q dog. It's the dog. Alfonso, how do you that misconception of fraternities and sororities being caught up in the mix of what Miss Lisa is saying, that it becomes more of a sexual track when you become involved in these fraternities and sororities, and then the color of a person's skin, the phenotype, going to certain fraternities and sororities. How does that play a role? Because going from the shops to higher ed.
Well, see, I'm not going to get into that kind of conversation about us versus us on these different levels. I'm an alpha. I pledged alpha in undergrad. And as I studied fraternities and sororities and the history of fraternities and sororities, I realized technically Black people don't have no selves running around calling ourselves Greek.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But Black people, we have a lot of traditions. And traditions are very important for us, no matter how much sense they don't make.
That's correct.
And so
that's 100% correct.
That is correct.
That is correct.
So we can all agree on that one.
When the doctor asked me about courting earlier, or asked the general question about courting, I go back to the foundation that we once moved from, which is a universal approach to life with a true understanding of what procreation was about. Understanding also that as adults, it's our responsibility to make sure the children understand that their life is a preparation to bring forth life. So because the doctor used the term PTSD earlier, everyone understands PTSD associated with military people, but we just kind of write it off as it relates to our 400 years of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
We don't address that. We just keep addressing the results of the trauma. We keep addressing how much we F over each other and how much we do this to each other. And the Black man does that to the Black woman, and the Black woman does that to the Black man, and all of this other stuff. Yeah, that's true, because we sick. But somewhere along the line, I think the conversation is going to have to get involved with how do we begin reintroducing concepts and life principles into our lives and into the lives of our young people that help us to be more compassionate and respectful towards one another, and help us to have a higher quality of life, period. But there are any number of things that divide us on college campuses across the country. When I used to go to all of these different colleges, I'm the alpha, we at each other's throat because we different colors. So on the campus I was on, our fraternity had problems with this so-called Kappas. But then I go to another campus, our fraternity got problems with the Qs, so now I gotta be on that campus and I gotta have problem with the Qs. We all black, but we keep dissecting ourselves and creating all of these divisive things, the fraternities, sororities, hair length, hair texture, eye color, skin color. We keep coming up with all of these different ways to separate ourselves from each other, not understanding that these are all indications that we are clearly out of our natural minds and functioning with a contaminated consciousness created by somebody else. But we think we're okay. And it's not a criticism of the civil rights movement, but the civil rights movement made white people our standard for what's best for us.
Correct.
Even I was listening to the sister earlier. She said, you treat me how you treat that white woman. No, he should treat you in a respectful way and how you want to be treated. Don't have nothing to do with white people. We celebrate.
No, that's not how I meant it.
We celebrate the first black.
We know what you meant.
Okay.
We celebrate the first black. My only challenge was the white woman was the example. That's my challenge.
It wasn't an example for me. It was the example for him that
you
white
said
was
it,
better. And you got yourself together when you went and approached her. You don't you don't approach me without getting yourself together. That
the
was
way
my
you got yourself together
point.
for that white woman.
It had no bearing on her being superior to me or the example.
I didn't say anything about superior.
She's nowhere in my blueprint. I was saying the way that they approach white women, you get yourself together, but you come to me raggedy. Get yourself together like you went to her. That's what I'm saying. It could have been a purple person. I'm just saying that's the context. It wasn't like
gonna do it because I'm gonna lose.
Superior to me.
So, all right. Hold on. Let me just finish my point. Anytime black people use white people as our standard for anything, we are confirming that we're out of our natural minds. Because no other group of people uses white people as their standard for what's best for them. Anytime we celebrate being the first black anything, we're confirming that white people are our standard.
I agree.
The civil rights movement made white people our standard for what's best for us. And ever since then, because they've been our standard for what's best for us, our measure of freedom has always been defined by our ability to do what white people do, have what white people have. We've never addressed the fact that this PTSD is functioning in our consciousness, and it has never been addressed. Because the script got flipped from searching for freedom to, oh, we're free now if we can have and do what white people can do. Never connected to our consciousness. There's no freedom that we can have that's not connected to our consciousness. And the consciousness we function with now, we're looking at the results. We're looking at the byproducts. We're looking at the examples. Everything black people are complaining about is the byproduct of functioning with a consciousness created by white people.
All right.
But are you clear? But are you clear, or did you just dismiss that wasn't the context in which I was having that conversation? Because anybody that knows me knows that's never going to be my standard, and they know how programmed I am.
We all know that.
Were you?
I only mentioned it because you said straighten up for me the way you straightened up for that white woman. You said
right, but the context wasn't holding her to a standard. It was a standard for him, is what I said, not a standard for me. You straighten up for the way you straightened up when you approach her. You straighten up when you approach me. It wasn't a standard for me. It was a standard for him. That's what he thought was the standard. So he straightens up for her, but then comes to me raggedy. That's what I said.
But we got you. I'm clear on it. I think
let me ask a question. I'm gonna ask you a question, sister. The question I have for you is, do you have a standard that requires men, women, anybody that wants to get your attention Do you have a standard that they must operate by in order for them to get your attention? Anybody?
Yes, and I'll know that standard when I see them. Like
No. Your standard. I'm talking about your standard. Do you have a standard that is necessary? A set of standards that are necessary for anybody to approach you, male or female, in order for you to respond to them in a respectful way. Is there a standard that you have for yourself that they must operate by?
Yes, but I'm telling you, it's not a standard that I like notate. I just, when I see it, I know how I should be approached and how and how I will respond.
That's right. Okay. So the point that I'm making,
I do have a standard.
Right. So the point that I'm making is that if you have a standard that's important to you, that they must meet in order to interact with you, then the white woman don't matter.
You're still not getting it. You went back again.
Yeah, I went back.
I'm telling you why it mattered was because there is a standard amongst Black men in how they view white women. Not me. My standard is my standard. But what I'm saying to you, it was really just a joke. The way you stand up and straighten your jacket up to go approach her and get your whole life together when you approach her, don't just be coming to me all raggedy because I'm a Black woman. That's what my point was. So it wasn't anyway like I'm comparing standards with me and her because my standard stands alone. It has nothing to do with her, really. It had everything to do with him and how he approaches me versus her. That was the point. And I don't know if you're
let me say this.
But that was the whole point.
Okay, so I think
with a white woman, it was him, how that man treated me versus a white woman. So
and essentially it's the same thing when a Black person is speaking with another Black person versus how they speak when they speak with a white person. You should speak intelligently regardless of who you're speaking to, and not just try and speak articulately and intelligently when you're speaking to a white person or someone who's not Black. That surmises what you're saying. But
now it would be me. I could understand you if it were me saying, well, I'm going to act a certain way when a white woman comes in versus how I act my normal self. She's not my blueprint. She's not my standard. White people are nothing to me. They don't even exist in my world. I create my surroundings for my Blackness. Everything about me is going to be Black. I don't deal with them on a day-to-day basis. I create an element to where my utopia is where I deal with them as least as possible. They are not a part of my life. I don't want them in my life. And so when I deal with them, I'm going to be Lisa regardless. It doesn't matter who's around, Black, white, green, whatever. They going to know what I like, what I don't like. When you come in my shop, it's beauty, Black. This is it. If you come in my shop and you white, my responsibility is for my Black clients to be comfortable, not you. You don't come in here and set no tones up in here. The Black clients are comfortable, and then you. What do you need? But when I live my life, I don't live my life to please white people, because I do know that is something that you have to consciously get rid of. If you don't do it consciously every day, you will succumb to it. And I know people, and I deal with people day to day in my chair, trying to deprogram them from that because they really don't know. But what you're talking about, you're talking to someone who does know. So I get what you're saying, but that wasn't the context. If you knew me, that wasn't the context at all. Period.
Well, I think we're all clear on the context that you were coming from at this point.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, I know we're going to be clear.
Let's be clear.
But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We ended up talking about a lot of different things, and it's been a very, very good conversation. And I hope everyone who took their time on this Sunday to check us out enjoyed what they have heard and experienced here in the Lion's Den on this Sunday afternoon. I want to again thank my guests, and I want to have you all back again because this is the longest show that we've done thus far. I mean, we're almost at 2 hours, and I got a feeling that we could probably keep this going on for another 2 hours and not even notice the time. So we definitely have to get back together and do this again and talk about some other major subjects and issues that concern not just Black people, but people in general. And as I always say, I think we're all trying to make the world a better place before we check out. We want to leave our mark and do something great in the world. And I think we're on track to do just that. So thank you again. And we will see you guys again in the very near future.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you taking your time on this Sunday afternoon to check us out in the Lions Den. Hope you enjoyed that conversation, and I hope you continue to visit us in the Lions Den. Currently, we are doing things on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we might make some modifications to that in the not too distant future, but rest assured we will still be here having great conversation here in the Lions Den, and we are trying to, as we succeed, to change, we are restoring kings and queens one conversation at a time. Until next Sunday, love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We out of here.